Colin Murray, Monday to Wednesday, 10:30 till 1 on 5 Live.
Yeah, and Tuesdays just turned to Wednesday. Loads of messages coming in about our Creation Records are looking ahead to that Creation Stories movie. Ashmi says, nice to hear someone admit that a biographical film might be faked or inaccurate. Queen, please note. Freddie says, great art accompany that. They were brilliant, weren't they? Nick Moran's such a gent as well. He did a version of 12 Angry Men, which is my favourite film of all time. The original, not the remake. And he played the part of the guy that had the baseball tickets, if you've seen that film. And he invited me along too. It was a great night. He's such a gentleman. But that film, the film's fantastic. The play was absolutely wonderful. I can't believe it didn't run for longer. It ran for quite a while, but it's very good. Anyway, Matt says, didn't Pat Nevin leave a game at half-time to go to a Jesus and Mary chain gig when he was on the bench? Pretty sure he did. He also got fined by his club for going to a museum instead of out drinking. Matt says, did your bookers get the wrong Andy Bell for this Creation Records special tonight? No, but we did have a chuckle at that earlier. They weren't connected at all. It wasn't a mistake. And in fact, I was trying to get this particular Andy Bell for absolutely ages. Yeah, it is now time for our midnight meets that we do every Tuesday into Wednesday at midnight, a long form proper old chat. And the music theme continues tonight on the show. And this is just a lovely hour radio for you now. And that's not me being big-headed. It's because of my guest, who I absolutely adore. To catch up with this week was just great. As a child, these albums I devoured and wish I still had the vinyl. And still now, Erasure have made some of my favourite pop songs ever. And when I first moved to London, the clubs I used to go to at the weekends, I used to love going to proper good pop nights and gay clubs like GAY at the London Story, which is sadly no longer there. I have got many blisters dancing to Erasure over the years through my whole life. 24 consecutive top 40 hits, nearly 30 million albums sold. Wow. Let's wait no longer. Tonight's Midnight Meet is with the one and only, even though there's a couple of them in music, Andy Bell. Andy Bell, welcome to the programme. I've been wanting you to do this Midnight Meets for so long, so thank you.
Oh, hello, great. I'm glad we've got this opportunity. I had no idea that you were wanting to do this. So.
Yes. I'm just gonna pick a place to start and then we'll have a conversation because we're never doing all of your life on Erasure, even in this length of interview. So the place I've just started is really simple. If I interview a lead singer of a band or a songwriter, a guitarist, whoever, usually whether it's a pop duo, whether it's an R&B outfit, whether it's a rock and roll band, they'll have all started in the same place and they've went from obscurity to fame together. And that's just not the case. Right? You met Vince when Vince had already written Just Can't Get Enough, one of the greatest pop songs of all time for Depeche Mode. He'd written for Fergal, Sharkey and the Assembly. He teamed up with Alison Moyet for Yazoo. Again, amazing.
Yep.
And you're having to walk into that room with someone who you idolised, loved his music.
I know.
All I needed was the love you gave. All I needed for another day. And all I ever knew, only you.
I mean, Vince Clarke was in my mind, because I was a big fan of his, and I thought, well, who's like one of the most left field writers, that I'm a fan of, and Vince was kind of really the only person on that list, I mean, thank goodness I didn't really think about the pedigree too much, because, I was a huge Yazoo fan anyway, and the track with Fergal, but I kind of, I was a bit shaky when I went into the studio for the first time, but I had seen Vince like just on my travels, like in London, being in, I went to one odd audition, which was for a Bow Wow Wow spin-off band. And and I saw Vince, it was at Blackwing Studios that he used to half own with Eric Radcliffe, where he did the Yazoo stuff. And it was him playing on the Space Invaders machine, And I was like, oh gosh, that's Vince Clarke out of Erasure. I mean, not out of Yazoo, Yeah, and so I just thought, I answered this little ad in the music paper, and I was kind of in a duo already with this guy just for 6 months, but I answered the advert, and they said, oh, we'll bring you back if we don't find anyone. So I said, oh well, they won't bring back, And then the phone rang on Monday, and they said, well, can you come to the audition tomorrow? This is for Vince Clarke. So I said, oh yeah, sure, and I was beside myself. I couldn't believe it, because I had really thought of writing him a letter, and so that's why in the beginning I sounded quite a lot like Alison, because I rehearsed to the records all the time, and you just pick up the intonation. So I just decided on that, it was Tuesday, that I was going to go down, enjoy myself and have a great day, because that was an experience in itself, just going for an audition with him. I couldn't believe it was him. When we were working on the first album, Wonderland, this was only after like a 3-month period of me waiting for him to be ready, and I just could not believe it was him in the studio. I was kind of so starstruck. I was kind of sitting in silence, and they were like, they might have thought I was a bit creepy, because I was so shy. I just didn't know what to say, and they were kind of making up all these jokes and trying to make me laugh, and so I did feel out of my depth, definitely.
Crazy. I didn't realise from audition to making Wonderland was so short. I mean, for it to be a matter of weeks is what you're saying, like 12 weeks or whatever it was, the 3 months.
Yeah,
that's crazy. That's crazy.
It seemed quite long, yeah, because he was still kind of mid-assembly, because his project was to have all these singers. This was before Soul to Soul did their multi-singer album, and nobody had done it before really. So and he was just released the single with Paul Quinn, the Borgia guy, and and I was thinking like, oh God, please don't be a hit, because I would love the chance to work with Vince.
Vince is not, those guys and girls that you meet and are instantly warm and open. Vince isn't that guy,
Yeah.
He's quite dry, and when did the relationship, or maybe it never has, Andy Bell, when did it become a partnership of equals, or have you always kept that little bit of that's Vince Clarke?
I think sometimes, I do, when I'm kind of going online and stuff, or, when you're watching the TV and it just so happens it's, there's all these clips come on from like the best of the 80s and stuff like that. And then Vince is always there, and I always think like, oh, there's my little baby kind of thing, because he was only 17 when he was in Depeche. And, he looked so young and stuff like that. I mean, he hasn't really changed that much. But I was 21 when I met him. So that's like 5 years older or something than when he started, 4 years older. So it makes me proud. It makes me proud of, and I think as well with all your contemporaries, when I see them now, people that I've met like on the TV and stuff, like Paul Humphries and Debbie Harry and all the people from the 80s, I suppose. It's, I feel quite humble when I'm included in that with my contemporaries and my peers, people from the 80s, like Spandau Ballet and Paul Humphries, I just remember like walking into the studio with Paul Humphries was there, and I think the guy from ABC, and they were like, they said like, oh, quickly, shut up. Here's Andy. Here's a proper singer, like coming in, and it just makes me laugh, those things, because I just feel like I'm just myself,
Yeah. Do you feel like Just Can't Get Enough was the Erasure single that never was? If you listen to it, it's so Erasure. If you hear the bump, 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 ba-da, bump, bump, and I can hear your voice on it, I can hear it filling discos
right
with you, of all the stuff that he wrote before.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many amazing riffs that Vince has written. You know, sometimes I feel like the song doesn't match up to the riff. You know, like songs we've written together, like, and I say something like "Sunday Girl" or something like that. You know, that's where the riff is so amazing. The intro riff, it's like the song can't possibly live up to the riff. You know.
I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. We slip and slide as we fall in love. I just can't seem to get enough.
We did one concert. It was kind of like a mute night concert. It was at the Roundhouse in London, and it featured kind of lots of the mute artists. And of course, the Vince segment was with Alison and Virgil, and so we did a version, or Erasure did a version. I just can't get enough. But it's with this kind of Yamaha all-in songwriting machine, and it wasn't a very good version. So I just feel like it's, even though it's kind of a gospel song to me, which I would love to do a gospel version, it's kind of Depeche Mode's signature tune. So I think it would be stamping a bit.
I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. All the things you do to me and everything you said, and I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. We slip and slide as we fall in love, and I just can't seem to get enough.
If we just forget about success, because it's there, 22 singles in a row that went in the top 20, you know, number one album after number one album. I don't think I've ever researched a band interview and looked at the beginning and seen such a run of quality singles. So I'm just going to take 7 years, right? And I'm going to leave nothing out. Are you ready?
We'll be together.
Who Needs Love Like That? Heavenly Action, Ola Moore, Sometimes. It Doesn't Have to Be, Victim of Love, The Circus, Ship of Fools, Chains of Love, A Little Respect, Stop, Drama, You Surround Me, Blue Savannah, Star, Chorus, Love to Hate You, Am I Right?
We'll be together. Nobody never gonna disconnect us or ever separate us or say to us you've got to stop.
I'm leaving out top 10 hits, by the way. I'm just stopping after 7 years. Right? I can't go on.
Yeah.
Well, take me inside that world when it was release material, promote material, play gigs, write more material. Was it like a hit factory, or was it just always bewildering that it produced these results? I'd love to know.
I mean, to be honest, we never even thought about it. I swear to you. You know, I mean, we had confidence. I mean, when you have a song like Ola Moore. I mean, it's like, you know, there's a feeling in the song. You know, I mean, I love the song, you know. And then I suppose the first hit that we wrote together was Sometimes, and we kind of knew from that it just had a feeling about it.
Ooh, sometimes the truth is harder than the pain inside. Yeah.
And then after that, I don't know. It was just, I mean, Vince always puts it down to luck, and it's kind of like, I never believed him, you know, but I think it's just the chemistry that we had, or that we have, you know, and you kind of, we weren't taking it for granted, but we just kind of together and writing. I suppose it's just the excitement and the enthusiasm of when you're together, you know. And Vince always loves to write on guitar, and then he'll go to the piano, but he loves guitar mostly. It has that driving kind of rhythm to it, you know. And I like writing on synth, so because I love all the weird sounds and stuff and the bass lines. But no, they were. I mean, those songs were all true collaborations. I mean, all the songs are. Honestly, we didn't think about it. I think that's one. Once you start thinking about it, you know, when it becomes headspace, it's then you start tripping up. You start tripping yourself up, and that's what happened as well to us. You know, I think we've done some really good stuff as well in the meantime. But it's kind of like when you're on a run like that, you just don't have time to even consider how you came up with it. Yeah.
there's no way you would not have had a single moment to breathe, because I was born in 77, and before research, and I thought it felt like Erasure owned the 80s when it came to pop music. From 85 all the way through to the mid 90s, you mustn't have caught your breath.
No, I mean, hardly. I mean, that's why we consciously took a break, after, I think it was maybe I Say. Then we did the Erasure album, which I love, but it took forever, like in the studio. But that was the first time that we really took a break after and this was straight after the Phantasmagorical tour, which kind of like went round the whole world, like maybe twice, I don't know, and it kind of, we've never really matched that tour, but it's not like you're not playing against yourself, so it's, you just adapt, and also I think it's not like about wising up about the music industry, but you kind of like, after a while, you learn to say no as well. It's like you don't do every single thing that's coming along, and I admire Kate Bush and love her, and I really understand when people retire almost, retire from TV. She was on everything. She was on Kenny Everett show, Blue Peter. In some ways, Erasure was a bit the same. We were kind of, because we were on everything going, and then when Spice Girls came out, I mean, they were recording in the Strong Room studio, which was really funny. And they came into the studio to see me, like saying, "Oh, hi, Andy, we love you," and da la la. And I was thinking, who are these loud girls, And then they took over the world, and from then it was kind of like all our entire team was sacked. I mean, not by them, but just circumstances. Our whole team had the rug pulled under from their feet, so we kind of had to start again. Really, we had a choice when Erasure the album came out, the first single, which was a really slow single, which is kind of unusual for us. They said, "Will you put a scratch card on the single?" This was to like have it sold in Woolworths and stuff, and so we said no. And I think because we said no, that was like a huge cross against our commercial name. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe, though, it was like that program Quantum Leap, where it's just meeting the Spice Girls. They just sucked it all and took it and used it. Maybe there's some sort of dark arts going on here.
They probably threw us into another vortex.
Here's something interesting. You said about Kate Bush, sort of reaching a moment where she said was enough. But after she'd done that, is it not true that you may or may not have, in one of your more wild years, Andy Bell, knocked on her door and asked her to produce your album?
We did. That's just coming out on the I Say reissue that we actually did go around to her house. It was organised, with Daniel, Vince, and myself, and she was really lovely and like nothing how I imagined. From her image, but she was so down to earth and really South London, and had loads of cats and like made cake, and we had loads of cups of tea. And then she couldn't do it. She couldn't do it for us. She thought, well, she doesn't know what she could bring as a producer to us, because I think we were too poppy maybe for her. But then, she was so sweet. She phoned me up and we were on the phone for like an hour. I'd only met her that one time,
Yeah. Oh, that's great. When you're going through this breakneck period, and I want to get on to playing live in a second, but were those tracks now that are still in 2021 constantly on the radio that still sound amazing all these decades later? So like Sometimes is the obvious one, right? Comes on the radio, you turn it up. Little Respect's another obvious one, and arguably the best example of it that still has this unbelievable love and commercial success as well. Did they stick out to you? Did you say, these are special even by our standards?
I don't think they did. Sometimes sort of did. Because that was our first big radio hit. But then, like a Little Respect, honestly, it kind of passed me by. I mean, a lot of those songs as well, like Blue Savannah, I had huge faith in that song. But a lot of the songs as well, we weren't actually in the UK when when they happened. So you kind of miss out on them as well, you know, when it's all happening because you're not there, you know.
When you hear it covered still today, it must be one of the most covered songs. When you realize, because I'm not saying this just because you're doing the interview. I wouldn't do that. I'm not saying about our songs. I'm saying that in the all-time list of British pop songs, you know, that's on it. I'm not going to put it at number 1 or number 6 or number 8. I'm just saying it is on it and it's very high.
I mean, I'm amazed, you know, I'm really amazed at this sometimes how some songs catch on and the kind of longevity of the song, you know, like, especially with A Little Respect, you know, and that's been on the Kelly Clarkson show, you know, and she just did her version of Always as well. So I'm thinking like, well, one of her crew must be like a gay fan or something, you know, like, I don't know.
That you gave me no, that you gave me no, that you gave me no, that you gave me no.
Yeah, it's amazing, you know, when you, I mean, that's what I love. I mean, I know I've kind of been avid out, but I kind of like, maybe it sounds too big-headed, but you sort of like put yourself in that category, even though we didn't have lots of number 1 singles. It's like the quality of the songs. I mean, I've always been really concerned about the quality of the songs and the diction, and so people can hear the words. And it's for the same with Vince's with his music. The clarity of the music, I think that's what really comes through. And I think that's what defines something between, you know, being good pop and not so good pop.
How does this really, admittedly, really acutely shy young man, in terms of dealing with any sort of social interaction that goes beyond one person, how did you cope with such a quick... I'm in a band, to months later I'm successful, to months after that playing live to big crowds. How hard was it? How much did you have to go to the emotional well to get through all this success?
I always say, well, you know, you have to be a diplomat kind of in when you're a musician, and you kind of do. And I think one of the reasons as well why I wanted to be a performer was that you would be forced into conversations with people, because, you know, before that, when I went out, you know, I used to go out, I would go to Heaven, this nightclub, and go to Wednesday nearly every week, you know, and that was the kind of the rough nights, you know, when you'd see like Boy George and all those kind of people there, and or the arty night, I suppose. And then, but you know, it took me like even a year to pluck up courage to speak to people going there. So when you're thrown into that kind of pop arena, you know, I remember playing a gig there. We played a gig at Heaven, and it was the BBC computer that Vince was using broke down on the stage. So there's no music. He used to program the lights as well, so there was no lights, no music, and they were saying, "Andy, tell us a joke," you know, and I'm hopeless. I'm like the worst comedian in the world, you know, and so I just started doing impersonations of like other singers, and you know, just kind of remembered from when I was a kid, like singing Donny Osmond and things like that, you know, but it was from that moment that I realised I've got to come on and be a larger-than-life character that in order to make up for when these moments happen, because they're going to happen again, you know. And also, you kind of surprise yourself, you know. When I've been in some gigs and there's been like hassling in the front row in the crowd and stuff like that, or somebody picking on someone, and like when I turn on them, you better watch out,
Yeah.
because it's like,
Yeah.
what do you think? What do you think you're doing on and stuff like that? They get really scared. Vince gets scared when I lose my temper, which rarely ever happens. Being a good Taurian boy.
It's the live gig fascinates me, not only now but back then, and how there was only one Erasure, but how did it change? Was there different gigs? Was there like when you played the gay crowds in the 80s and when you played the non-gay crowds, and the crowd was all of a sudden like couples and families who had seen you on Top of the Pops?
Not to be honest, it always has been really mixed. It really has.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I know we played those specific gay places, but it's kind of like our gigs have always been really mixed. My friend Les, he's our choreographer. He said there's nothing straighter than an Erasure fan, which I really believe. I really believe that, because you get these like really kind of blokey blokes, And he always says, "Oh, tell him to put a pair of knickers on. They'll be all right."
So do you view the Erasure live experience as you just mentioned you like say you just mentioned we're gabbing on a lot now, but you talked about the gospel sort of feel that just can't get enough and stuff. Do you look for that spiritual, that celebratory, that carnival if you can, or just that mix of emotions, like when you play live?
Yeah, I think it always happens because you can be really, really tired. I mean, there have been gigs when I've been exhausted, but it's kind of like you always just want to put like 1,000%. I know there's no such thing, but you always just want to put all your heart and soul into everything. It's kind of, and again, it goes back to when I was a kid. It's like, I wanted to put shows on in my back garden. So we put, in the front garden. So we put shows on, and I put all the chairs out and like made the stage and made all the tickets, and then didn't realize that you needed a promoter for the show. So nobody would come. I thought people would just come because it was a show. And, we were performing on the street. I would sing on the street, and this is no lie. The Baptist Church of Peterborough bus came by and stopped and was listening to me singing and said, "Will you come to the church and come and sing with us?" And I thought, already no, because I'd already left the Methodist church, and I thought, I can't, I'm too scared, when I think in hindsight, I think, how would my voice have sounded if I'd have gone there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting in terms of if you didn't live through the 80s, if you're a younger person listening now, it's hard to explain that in the 80s when you watched a band like Erasure, or when you watched Wham, or when you watched the Pet Shop Boys, people, as a matter of normal conversation, like how's the weather, when's the bus coming, they openly called out people's sexuality. They pointed and guessed.
Yeah.
How did that work in the dynamic of your band when you were, because you were openly out, you're one of the few artists who were openly out. How did Vince handle the finger pointing and speculation, because he's so private?
Well, Vince thought it was perfect. He was, because, as I said, the reason I admired him was because he was so left field. And then, when we were working in the studio, I was kind of inviting loads of boys to come to the studio, and so he kind of like sussed from that about that I was gay. And then, I said, yeah. And he said, oh, that's really cool, kind of thing. And we done like drag and all sorts together, going out, doing DJing and things like that, and I would take him out with me on tour and all kinds of things. And he's always been like perfectly fine with it, and it's kind of, but you're right, at that time, Jimmy Somerville, we were kind of quite angry, at other people for not being out and stuff. But now I just feel like, well, it's their choice, and there's no way that like Elton or Pet Shops or anyone would have had a hit in the first place if they'd have been out, like in America. There's no way they would have had number ones or anything like that, People don't understand, like, that's just how it worked then.
Oh,
you know, and you were even advised by gay managers not to be out. You know, even my partner at the time, Paul, he said, "Don't come out. It will be a death knell on your career." And I said, "No, honey, I can't. I have to be me. This is who I am."
Savannah song, oh, blue Savannah song, somewhere across the desert, sometime in the early hours, in a restless world, on the open highway.
Who gave you that opposing advice then? That said, no, go ahead, be yourself.
Well, nobody really. It was just that's what I wanted to do, because I've always wanted, you know, I've always had my heart on the sleeve kind of person, and I kind of decided a bit earlier on when I was a teenager that I was such a good liar at one time that if I carried on lying like that, I was going to end up in so much trouble. That I kind of decided right from then on I would be as honest as I could be, you know, and sometimes that's to your own detriment, you know, but that's just life.
Looking back at, as you say, yourself and Jimmy Somerville, and then I'm going to count on one hand
Holly.
the rest of the exactly. Holly Johnson, exactly. I think that's the three. But then, of course, you had so many that weren't out, you know, and people know them by their first name, Freddie, George, we go on. Does your view change since when you look back at that of who did and who didn't?
Well, it does. I mean, it does even for yourself, because I'm, you know, if I go and look on YouTube or whatever, or the first thing that comes up is gay. That's the first thing, you know, of any comment of any song. And I just think, well, you put the label on yourself. You know, it was kind of, I felt like it was necessary at the time to do that, you know. But then also, you know, I kind of like, I suppose it's like having a bit of a chip on your shoulder, even being out. It's like being proud and then thinking lesser of the other people that weren't out. And then I thought, like, no, you can't do that, because because you're being judgmental. You're being judgmental of these people, and they're going through their own thing in their own pace, you know, in their own developments and stuff. And, you know, they had all other things going on, so you can't do that.
Obviously, things have improved. We have a lot more everyone has a lot more of an idea. Like them, we were clueless back then. But has it changed enough? Like, as we sit here now, do you see it as like, well, I'm thankful that it's easier, or do you think, you know, there's a lot of very mainstream things now that would never be mainstream ladies, or has it been just too slow, Andy?
I mean, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that the laws changed and it's finally caught up, you know, and also politicians even dare to say they're pro-gay and stuff like that. Even Tory politicians, you know. So that's a great thing, you know. And at the same time, you know, it's like the whole Black Lives Matter movement, you know, it's still, you know, there's kind of like prejudice there, and it's kind of like it's not spoken about, but it's kind of, but it is a lot easier. And I think really the age that we're living in, the dawn of the age of Aquarius, is you know, the lid has come off the Pandora's box, really, and that's all to do with the internet. I think I remember reading this article about, you know, how they predicted that once we had the World Wide Web, the world was going to change beyond recognition, and that's kind of what's happened. And we're still trying to suss it out. It's almost like it's one world governance almost, and we don't really quite know. We don't really quite know. The lines are so blurred.
Call it new technology, and they use it to burn, and they show no concern. Work for their prosperity, while the big wheels turn. Now it's too late to learn.
You're Right, and we're the guinea pigs for it. If you're living this part of Earth,
Yep.
if you're if you're the speck of dust in this particular
Yes.
short period of time of existence, you're
Yep.
living this birth of this thing that some of it
It's
looks
true.
good in one hand, some of it looks awful in the other, and
Yep.
and somewhere it's going to find its place,
Yeah, it's like all the chips have just been thrown up in the air,
Yeah, exactly. Do you still? So when you go to countries and you play gigs, I suppose you get to see the progress is different in each country and where it is better and where it isn't, just by the virtue of those tours.
Yeah, you really do. I mean, like we've had such a great kind of like support and for me, it's an inspiration. Even from the audiences that we've had, really from way back. And especially with teenagers and people then. And even now, I kind of like. I'm so proud of young people, because they're kind of like born with this like innate quality and kind of like this non-prejudice. They're born with it. I'm sure we all are, but they seem to have evolved even beyond what we've achieved. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that blows me away. That really blows me away. I think that's just really part of the human experience and how we kind of like. We are evolving, I know it doesn't seem like that sometimes when we blow each other up, but it's kind of. But I definitely believe that we are spiritually evolving.
I sometimes think if it was available as a technology, as a thing to be able to do, would I take the option of freezing myself and coming back in 100 years when I'm pretty sure the world's going to be a much better place?
Right.
I think I probably would. I think.
Yeah.
I think. Well, not those. That's a bit of a morbid thought, isn't it?
Who's
For an
going to
interview with Andy Bell from Erasure? But I've had that thought.
You'd have to like have this trust of somebody who's going to defrost you, though, wouldn't you? So, in 100 years' time, how are you going to get that? Like in a
the problem
contract?
Yeah, but it'd have to be it wouldn't even be that. You'd have to be the trust of somebody's grandkid who hasn't been born yet.
Yeah, it would just be your little tiny bit of your DNA in a little capsule. That's what it would be. Yeah.
If I ask you two questions about it, one is a very positive, which is when was the holy shit moment, when you're like, we have arrived at this place and I cannot believe I'm looking out at this and we have done this together, and maybe even if you had it with Vince where you went, what have we done?
I don't know. It's probably the culmination after the Phantasmagorical tour and then ending up playing at the Milton Keynes Bowl, maybe that's now no longer there, but maybe that or like some of those big gigs.
One more look and I can hear a bell ring. Just one look and I forget everything. Whoa, mamma mia, here I go again. Mama, how can I resist ya? Mamma mia, does it show again? Wow, just how much I missed ya.
Sometimes I feel a bit kind of like sorry that we weren't born, not weren't born, but we hadn't formed when Live Aid came out and those big, huge concerts and things, because there's a lot of things I would have liked to have been part of, but I feel really proud that we go and play in New York and like all these musical moguls come and see us, from all the theatres and stuff like that. And then you can go and play in LA and play like 3 nights in somewhere, and then go to South America or South Africa. I mean, it's funny because we're not famous all around the world. It's not like one of those,
right,
worldwide phenomenons. We're kind of like only in particular places, which in some ways I really like because you can be completely anonymous.
Right.
When you
can go to Holland anytime you want.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you can go to Norway anytime you want.
Holland, Spain, Italy. Yeah. Hey,
but Sweden, maybe not. Maybe stay clear of Sweden or Austria. Yeah. It's weird that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is strange. But I think that's part of being on an independent label and from the whole being gay thing from the beginning. It's kind of like certain media outlets won't promote you, and that's it.
Yeah. And do you feel any level of resentment or happiness in a way that it seems to me like there are people who buy Erasure albums now and they buy them. Breaking through that's difficult, especially when you're a UK band. I always feel we don't really have respect for heritage in the way that the Americans do, for example. Like the Neon did brilliantly, right? The last album got to number 4, the album before got to number 6, but in terms of sales, do you feel like you're set within a family now? And how does that sort of sit with you?
Kind of. Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to break out of that. Once you've formed this, this coalition, I suppose. But it's kind of, when I think about like albums like The Innocents or Wild or whatever, and the amount of people that buy them, some that bought it, sometimes I think like, oh, where are you now? Lots of those people, like, have you completely forgotten about us? But you can't. I can't
be. Kids, don't they? And they. We become less cool. I'm sorry, but we do. We go out less, and then a kid at 8 is going to buy, like you say, they need to hear Kelly Clarkson sing it.
I mean, I can't be a greedy cow. We've got, we've had plenty. We've had plenty, and I must be, I should be satisfied with my lot. But that's just the human, endeavor, the artistic. You always want to be doing new stuff,
You gotta feel it, and then you gotta feel it.
Do you still buzz off it? Because, like, say when you wrote, say, "Shot a Satellite," let's take that as an example. It's I think it's a beautiful track. It's it just hits that sort of dreamy, poppy sound that really connects. Can you still, really, really buzz off those moments?
Definitely. I mean, I do. I was kind of a bit shocked with that album, like kind of how easily it came out. With working around at Vince's studio, and he had made these amazing tracks, and I just started literally toasting, singing on the mic, and these tunes came out, and we were just like, we just kind of went, whoa, and. Those things you feel like are kind of a once in a lifetime thing that happens, but that's why Vince said it's down to luck, because it is a bit like a lottery kind of. But
well, he should do the lottery, because the lottery's only 6 numbers. He's been lucky. You've been lucky with him 40 times.
No, I know. It's kind of you still. All musicians say it, but you just still want to write that ultimate song. We've had a little respect. And I said I don't want to be
that
greedy.
Is an ultimate song. That is an ultimate song.
But still, you just want to write this. I want to write this sort of heartbreaker. It's like.
No, that's interesting. Yeah. What's the closest you feel like you've managed to get to writing that track?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, maybe
Stay With Me. No.
Yes, maybe Stay With Me or Rock Me Gently on. There's one on that track. There's one on that album as well, which is I forget what it's called, but it's about press your hands into the pavement. Here's your moment. Grace, that's it. Yeah,
I love that. That's the one. I want to write a song that breaks the world's heart. What a great
it's true. There's a great video of Grace, which is features the Hubble telescope.
Yeah,
it's really lovely. Yeah.
Oh wow. So lowest moments, because you've never broken. The greatest thing about, no matter what you go off and do, solo projects, etc., you've actually never broken up. So he's your longest relationship outside of your immediate family. Vince Clarke is. So which is interesting to look at it like that.
More than my marriages. Now.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So what was the lowest moment? Was it? I mean, not going any. I don't want to go anywhere too personal, but in terms of the band itself. Like, was it giving up the coke? Was it? What was the kind of like when you kind of was that?
Yes,
that must be close.
I would have to say, one time when I called Vince out for his drinking, that was horrible. We were on tour, and it was really awful. And then another time when he was my saving grace. And you talk about the coke. I've been probably awake for about a week with no sleep, and and Paul, my partner, then he phoned up Vince, said, "Look, Vince, I don't know what to do with Andy." Vince drove all the way from his house. It was like, I don't know, 30 miles away. came and picked us both up and said he couldn't believe how filthy we looked, dirty. And then he started playing the piano of one of our songs for me to sing to kind of bring me back down to earth. And then picked us up, took us around his house, and we had showers, got clean. He fed us, and to me that was like the mark of a true, sincere friend.
Wow. So you've been there for each other when you needed to be there outside of the music.
Honestly, yeah. We tell each other the most deepest personal things that we've been through. And it's amazing how the other person's been through it as well.
Yeah, exactly. They can put themselves in your shoes. They can walk that mile. This may now seem like a really superficial follow-up question, but see, when you look back on a decade of addiction, we know the damage it cost your body. It probably cost you friendships. It probably cost you a few other things. But is it the money that sticks with you when you look back and think, because you must have spent so much?
That is a guilty thing because you when you see people living on the streets and struggling and stuff like that, and when you think like, God, what a selfish bastard you were doing all that stuff, but then that's just you. That's just you. And then, you have to forgive yourself. You're not a monster for doing it. It's like anything else, Yeah, that's it really.
I know what you mean. Now, most personal question, but you don't have to answer it.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that this time of night, we always say the show is community, connection and conversation. And you've gone through the loss of a loved one and then connecting again. And I was just wondering, for those who are in similar situations, for most people it will, half the people listening to this now will have or will go through losing that partner. That's just a reality. Thinking out loud, how do you do that? How do you move on eventually? And is there a part of you that sort of remains true, I suppose, for forever to the person you lost, even as you move on? I find that a really interesting emotional journey,
Yeah, I mean, you do remain true to the person. I mean, the memory does fade of that person, and you have. I don't see very much Paul in my dreams, although he does visit sometimes, but not very often, And then, I mean, for me, that loss was like more than for my nan or, people in my family, because it was that raw, animalistic. I never realized how much I loved that person. I really didn't. I was kind of in denial about it, really, about being in love with the person. Yeah. And then when you're there, and I remember just going to the ICU, and they said, well, he's probably only got about maybe a couple of hours left. And I was like, what? What are you going on about? To the nurse. And then I remember, like, as he slipped away, it was like the cry that came out was, as I say, it was animalistic, and that pain. I don't know, I can't say how it is for a mother to lose a child. I don't know, but just that pain is just unbearable, and that takes. I wouldn't say forever. But you have to look at the good things. I mean, you kind of blur it out. You blur it out, that moment, but it's etched. It's etched in there. But I couldn't believe. When I met Steve. I met Steve right towards the end of Paul's life. And Paul met him, and we went round. We're all in the house together, and I was just saying to Paul how beautiful he looks. Because he was just going through this amazing spiritual experience with trying to fight the cancer. And he gave Steve and I his blessing. And to me, that was like such a huge, lovely thing. And it was kind of like he was passing the mantle over to Steve to look after me. And I thought that was
really help, yeah.
Yeah, that was so amazing. I don't know. I kind of, not many people have died that I know, so I don't know. It's something's quite foreign to me. I know it's,
I think you need a very, in order for, you know, Paul to still be part of your life. It takes Stephen to understand it completely. You know, for that to work, they have to happen together, I think. You know, so I think that's wonderful. It shows says a lot about Stephen.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it too much to him either, because I don't want to, you know, because he's my new life, you know.
Correct.
Hold on to the nights, there will be no shame. Always I wanna be with you and make believe with you and live in harmony, harmony, all love. I wanna be with you and make believe with you.
I find that really profound. You talk about I don't see him in my dreams as much, because I think a lot of people listening, and certainly when I've had to cope with grief, I would go to bed wanting to dream of that person, because that was the only way I could be with them again. Like, come in, please let me dream about you tonight.
You do, yeah. They do come at the oddest times, you know. I mean, Paul, you know, he built this house in Spain that we had together, and you know, one time I was lying there. It was after he'd passed away, and I was just lying there, and Steve was there, and I felt this like amazing peace just coming down on me, and the energy was Paul. I just knew it.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow. Oh, that's lovely. I'm sure a lot of people take a lot from that. How's your health these days? 'Cause I know you've had the 2 hips replaced, but they're as good as new, right?
I'm fine, yeah. I mean, my left hip gets a bit achy, but I'm not sure if it's like the position that I'm sitting in on the sofa, or because they're a good indicator of the weather when it's going to start raining like the next day, you know. So honestly, it's like having one of those. It's like one of those things you have on the wall that tells you the temperature and if it's going to be raining.
Oh yes, a barometer.
A barometer, yeah. It's a barometer.
Yeah. Well, so there's a weather thingy-majiggy.
And there's only that, and then also I know there's possibly a tour coming up by the end of the year, fingers crossed, and I know that I have to get fitter for it because I've been an absolute couch potato during lockdown, so same as everybody else, you know.
It's the lockdown stuff's interesting. Obviously, you released an album during it and you recorded it, but actually, the thing that really stuck out from your lockdown for me is because your mum's in a care home, so you had that separation, didn't you?
Yeah.
But am I right in saying really recently your dad got to see her for the first time in ages?
Yeah, he did. It's so sweet. It's so sweet, and I think they're allowed to hold hands as well. It's so sweet. I mean, how they care for each other is amazing. You know, I mean, they have a glass partition between them, which is a bit like being in prison, you know. But from the photos I've seen from my mum and dad together, that's like is pure love, you know, from when they're looking at each other, and it's kind of, and that's how Steve feels that we are, because his father was the same, like kind of had this sort of kindness, you know. I mean, my mum is a punk. She really is. She's like this punk, and she's like she's so hardcore, my mum. I think that's part of where my genes come from. Yeah,
I love it. Listen, there's so many other things I could ask you about. We've kind of sort of came to the end of a really lovely, just free flowing chat together, which is lovely. Andy, thank you so much for joining me. I hope it was a little different for you as well, the chat, because I know when, you know, there's a lot of obvious things to talk about, but hopefully you've enjoyed it.
No, it was great, Colin. Thank you very much.
I'm so in love with you. I'll be forever blue. That you give me no reason. You know you're making me work so hard. That you give me no, that you give me no, that you give me no, that you give me no soul. I hear you calling. Oh, baby,
Goodness me, I love that man so much. Andy Bell, tonight, midnight meet. Anytime that we have an excuse to have him back on, we'll have him back on for something else and be part of our community. Loads of nice texts coming in. Roger just said sensational chat with him. That's very kind of you, Roger. I'm glad you enjoyed it. He said it woke him up. Lorna, that's for you as well. Very much enjoyed it, which is good. And Robert
Listening to Andy Bell. Says, I remember their bingo at their Manchester concerts, and I went to all 10 nights at Birmingham's NEC on the Innocence Tour. Brilliant songs and lyrics that touch you deeply. That comes from Robert in Wednesbury. Have I said that right? Wednesbury? Hope I got that right. Yeah, loads of love for Andy Bell and Erasure coming in at the moment. And one little message that Wendy said for a start, in 1987, my girlfriends and I saw Erasure in Northampton, but I can't find it in the tour list. Maybe it was Milton Keynes. I think it was. It was great, except for one of us fainted in the hot crowd, but was cool. 17, brilliant music. That's for Wendy. And then I got a little message, no name on it, unfortunately, just said, what a lovely soul. I think that absolutely sums up Andy Bell from Erasure. What a really kind of like, I don't know, show that made me happy tonight, which is good. I hope it did the same to you. Marie's just messaged saying what an interesting man Andy Bell is. That was just brilliant. Yeah, one of those shows tonight. It's just good conversation with good people, and mainly yourselves. You were texting in all night, so thank you so much for that. If you're up for the evening, make sure you stay tuned, because Suze is in tonight, actually. Sorry about that. You don't tell me anything around these parts.
Hang on, you just said Suze is in tonight. Sorry about that. Do you know, it could be taken the wrong way, Colin.
I mean, sorry about that to you, because earlier I trailed Dotton twice, and they don't tell me when he's not in. Heads are going to roll.
I mean,
Heads are going to roll.
It is
you know
his show, and I'm just kind of keeping it warm for it. We're on Wednesday now, aren't we? It's Wednesday?
Yeah, it's Wednesday.
For
it's
Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
Talking
what
about
have you got tonight? What are you doing?
Well, very important things like the budget. Should we spend or should we save? And should you be made to have a vaccine if you're in the NHS? This is a front page story that you'll be reading about all day tomorrow. 200,000 people in the NHS don't want to take the vaccine. But crucially, how hairy are you, Colin? That's what I really want to talk about.
Very hairy. I've got particular. I've got very strange sort of. You know when you do, what do you call them? Heritage. You know when you look up where I'm from over the world.
Yeah.
And stuff. I've got very strange, really hairy hands and arms, but no hair in my chest.
Lockdown locks in particular is what we're going to be talking about.
Oh no, I cut my own hair. It's looking good.
Yeah, well, he always looks pretty good, Colin Murray. He's a cool character.
I'll give you.
The voice of the UK. This is BBC Radio 5 Live.